The most common form of a fake ID is a borrowed or stolen ID. The second most common form of a fake ID is the manufactured ID, and the third most common is the altered ID. On your list of acceptable IDs, the passport could be easily one of the most easily forms of identification there are to alter. A passport is valid for 10 years. People change in 10 years. For example, a person gets a passport when they are 17 years old, now they are 22 years old. The person will have changed. Passports have changed. The old style had the lamination over the picture, and you can feel where the picture had been placed. This is the same passport that was put on a scanner, and the documentation was changed. Note it reads, "Any age I want to be." The new one has the picture scanned in and laminated with a hologram over the lamination. Here's an example of the U.S. passport card. When someone uses a passport for ID, simply ask them for a second piece of ID. In fact, anytime you have questions on an ID, the first thing you should ask for is a second piece of ID. That would be anything with their name on it. You would prefer something with their name and photo on it, such as a student ID, an employee ID card, a bank card, etc. One thing should draw a red flag is if when you request a second piece of ID and the guest immediately responds with, "I don't have one." Most people have more than one thing in their wallet with their name on it. There should not be hesitation before they respond. Also, you can ask the passport holder if they are from a foreign country to speak some of the language. Now, let's discuss the military IDs. Anyone who is in the military is very proud of that fact, and they should be. There's a good chance that they will show you their military ID. There are a couple of different styles. This style of military ID comes in different colors. You'll see a lot of pink ones and tan ones, as well as a blue one and a gray one. The problem with this ID is that the photo can be hard to see, and this ID gets handed off to younger siblings, friends, or whatnot all the time. The information can be photocopied and then applied to the ID, or a hot iron can be pressed into the ID and it'll pop open so the new information can be placed in, or the back seam can be cut open with an X-Acto knife and the new information placed into the ID. The ID will then be resealed. Well, a telling feature on this ID is this. This ID has been laminated over the top, which gives it one smooth edge and one sharp edge. Run your fingers over both edges. You can also ask a military ID holder this question: what's your last four? Everything and anything somebody does that is associated with the military is with the last four. If you ask them what their last four is, and they look at you with a huh, they are not in the military. This new military ID is a credit card style. It is fairly thick. It has a color photograph. Most will have their armed forces insignia, but some do not. It has a smart chip, but it does not have a physical signature. Instead, the signature has been encrypted on the chip, so it is on the ID. When you look at the back of the ID, it has a ghost photo with their information typed around the photo. This has a tendency to rub off, or it can get erased off. They can then change the birth date using stencils. To make your life easier, simply ask them for their driver's license. They got one on them. Even though Arizona has over 22 million visitors a year, and they will bring with them their out-of-state or country ID, the most frequent ID you will see is an Arizona state-issued ID. A common joke made about the Arizona driver's license is, it expires 5 years after you're dead. In actuality, the license is referred to as an extended driver's license, and it is valid until the age of 65. However, your photo and vision screenings need to be updated every 12 years. Drivers who are 60 and over will receive a 5-year license. Temporary residents such as out-of-state students and their spouses, or military personnel and their immediate family members may apply for a 5-year license regardless of age, which is why you will always have to examine the expiration date on an ID. Arizona driver's licenses are issued by class. These classes include Class G graduated, Class D operator, Class M motorcycle, and Class A, B, or C commercial. If the Class M license is combined with any other class of license, it will be added as an endorsement on the back of the current license. Because most Arizona driver's licenses are valid until they reach the age of 65, the current driver's license / identification you will see most is this style. This license will be formatted horizontally for those who are 21 years of age or older, and vertically for those under 21. However, the person will turn 21 while holding a vertical ID, so the vertical ID does not automatically disqualify them as being of age for the purchase, possession, or consumption of spirituous liquor. However, the vertical driver's license should only be accepted for 20 days after the person's 21st birthday to purchase, possess, or consume alcohol.